They thought the German Shepherd had finally turned dangerous. He hadn't. He was the only one in the room still paying attention. The crying started at 7:14 in the morning. Owen Marsh, 18 months old, green cotton onesie, bare feet, had been sitting on the kitchen floor for 4 minutes screaming in the way that bypasses explanation. No fever, no fall, no visible reason. His mother, Priya, a licensed respiratory therapist with 9 years of clinical experience, had already run her checklist. Temperature normal, diaper dry, no bruising, no swelling. Breakfast refused but present. She picked him up and he screamed harder. She set him down and he screamed harder still. That was when Coda moved. The German Shepherd had been lying in the doorway between the kitchen and the living room. His usual post, the place he returned to automatically, the way water finds its level. He had lived in this house for 4 years before Owen existed. He was the dog people called calm to the point of boring, which is why what he did next did not make sense to anyone who saw it. He crossed the kitchen in 3 strides. He lowered his head to Owen's face, nose 2 inches from the boy's mouth, and held it there. Owen screamed louder. Coda did not move. Priya said his name. He lifted his eyes to her and stayed exactly where he was. Her husband Marcus was at the counter pouring coffee. He turned and saw it. 95 pounds of German Shepherd, with his face at the baby's face, the baby screaming, Priya already moving toward them. Coda! Off! Marcus set down his mug. Coda stepped back. 1 step, then he moved around Priya's hand and returned to Owen's face. Same position, same slow, deliberate inhale through his nose. He held it for 3 full seconds. Then he looked up at them both, flat and direct, the way a dog looks when it has completed an assessment. Then he did it again. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Priya had 9 years of clinical experience reading respiratory patients in distress. She had seen dog behavior around agitated children in home care settings. She had filed 2 incident reports in her career involving large breed dogs and small children. She knew what resource guarding looked like. She knew what overstimulation looked like. She knew what fixation looked like in the 30 seconds before something worse happened. She put herself between Coda and her son. He moved around her. He's not stopping. She said it quietly. The way you say things when you don't want them to be true. Marcus took Coda by the collar and walked him to the back bedroom. The door latched. Owen's crying slowed within minutes. Proof, Priya thought. The dog had been the problem. She had solved the problem. The quiet felt like confirmation. It wasn't. Within 7 minutes, Coda was at the door, not barking. Scratching, a low, persistent, rhythmic scraping that didn't vary in tempo. Priya sat on the living room floor with Owen in her lap and listened to it and told herself it was separation anxiety. She had read about this. She knew the term. She had a framework and the framework was holding. Just barely. At 8:02, Marcus opened the bedroom door to check on him. Coda went directly to Owen. Same behavior, nose to the boy's face, 3-second inhale, then up to look at them, then back to the boy's face. He needs to go outside, Marcus said, for the day. Priya nodded. She had trained herself not to argue when the evidence was clear. The back door closed at 8:09. Coda sat at the glass and watched the inside of the house with the specific stillness of an animal that has been separated from a task it is not finished. At 8:41, Owen fell asleep against Priya's chest. She carried him to his room, laid him in the crib, and stood at the edge of the doorway for a moment. Something in the air of the room registered without landing. Faint, sweet, wrong in a way she couldn't locate. She went to fold laundry. She had a clinical brain. She filed the sensation under nothing and moved on. At 9:17, the back door glass broke. Not shattered, cracked, corner to center, the result of 95 pounds of dog hitting it once at a full run. Marcus was already in the hallway. Coda was inside before anyone understood what had happened. He ran, not trotted ran, past both of them and into Owen's room and placed both paws on the crib rail and pressed his nose to Owen's face and made a sound neither of them had ever heard him make. Low, sustained, the sound of an animal that has run out of other options. Priya was in the room in 4 seconds. Owen was in the crib, eyes open, not crying. His lips had a color she recognized from clinical work. His skin was cool, the wrong kind of still. She picked him up. The limpness was off by 3%, the kind of wrong that only registers in hands that have held many babies. She called for Marcus. She called 911. She used clinical language because her brain had shifted into the gear that clinical language belongs to. The paramedic who arrived, a man named Devin Atcheby, 11 years in emergency response, had Owen's blood glucose reading within 90 seconds of walking through the door. He read the number on the device and said something to his partner that made them both move without finishing the sentence. The number was 33. At Children's Medical Center, Dr. Solange Okafor, pediatric endocrinologist, sat across from Priya and Marcus at 11:40 that morning. She had reviewed Owen's chart, his glucose trajectory, his presentation on arrival. She told them what had been happening. Owen had an undetected metabolic enzyme deficiency, a condition that causes blood glucose to drop silently without the dramatic symptoms most parents know to watch for. No seizure warning, no visible distress until the threshold. Just a child crying and a body running out of fuel and a room with a sweet faint smell that no human in the house could interpret. Dr. Okafor said, the compound that accumulates when glucose drops below 50 in a toddler is detectable in exhaled breath at concentrations a trained dog can register 22 minutes before a glucometer reads the shift. Your dog was reading chemistry your instruments couldn't see. She paused. He was the alarm. He was the only one that was still working. She looked at Priya directly. Another 11 minutes and we would be managing a seizure. At 33, the margin is not comfortable. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense? Until it was the only thing that made sense. Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Priya sat with that for a long time. Coda's face pressed to Owen's mouth while the boy cried. Not aggression. Breath reading. The circling at the bedroom door. Not anxiety. An alarm that couldn't be silenced. The 7 minutes of scratching, the specific, measured scratch of a dog who understood the door would eventually open if he was patient enough. The run through the broken glass. The run through the broken glass. She had put a door between her son and the only monitoring system in the house that was calibrated for what was happening. Owen came home on a Thursday with a continuous glucose monitor on his left forearm. Small, waterproof, linked to an alert on both their phones. His levels are managed now. The numbers are stable. The deficiency is understood. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Coda came back inside that same Thursday. He walked through the door, past Marcus, past Priya, and went directly to Owen's room. He lay down on the floor beside the crib. His chin rested on the hardwood. His eyes tracked the small blinking light on Owen's forearm. Priya sat on the floor across from him. She didn't move to the kitchen. She didn't reach for her phone. She sat there until Owen's breathing settled into sleep and the monitor blinked green 3 times and Coda exhaled once, long, without drama the way an animal exhales when the thing it was watching is finally safe. Tomorrow, a dog who refused to let a family enter their own home. What the fire investigator found inside changes how you think about what animals know.